So today we are going to start with another aspect of our vertical alignment, that is valley curve. So far we have seen in vertical alignment two components or two topics, that is gradients. We had seen different gradients, and then we saw summit curve and the ways to calculate that summit curve considering the SSD and OSD. So on similar lines, we are going to discuss or start our discussion on valley curve. So summit curve, now you all know, when there is an up gradient followed by a down gradient, generally it's a summit curve, and then you have some more variations in that summit curve as well. So valley curve, it's nothing but a basic valley curve is when you have a down gradient immediately followed by an up gradient. As you can see in this figure, that this is the down gradient. It is immediately followed by this up gradient. So in this case, whatever is the transition between those two gradients, that is nothing but the valley curve. Okay. So here you can see this is a typical example of a valley curve. And in this figure itself, you'll find various aspects of your geometrics, that is a down gradient, up gradient, valley curve, and then you have immediately a horizontal curve with an up gradient. Okay. So we'll not concentrate on that, we'll concentrate only on this valley curve. Okay. So this is what a typical valley curve looks like. And if we go into the types of valley curve, as we had seen the types of summit curve, so again, depending on which gradients are intersecting each other, we'll have different types of valley curve. So I told you the basic one, which was shown. This is the basic one, whose figure you had seen in the previous slide, that you have a down gradient of suppose value minus n1 and followed by an up gradient of value plus n2. Then you will get a typical valley curve, and valley curve is it is also known as a sag curve. Okay. So you will get a typical valley curve, but not always it's this case that you have a down gradient followed by up gradient. Many of the times you have different cases as well, as you can see in the first one. If I number it. Okay. So in case number 1, it's a down gradient, a steep down gradient of minus n1 followed by another down gradient, but it is having a less slope. Okay. The figure, it should be like this somewhat, so that okay. So this will also form a valley curve. Then in figure number 2, if you see, so it's a down gradient of minus n1, which is followed by a level road with 0 gradient. So n2 is equal to 0 in that case. Typically this case number 2, if you just try to relate it to some actual field conditions, so you will come to know that generally in case of flyovers, you have this kind of scenario. Everyone has seen a flyover. In a flyover, you have a level road, then the grade is separated, and then again it comes down, and then it meets a level road. So this second part of it, where your vehicle, it goes down and then goes on the level road, so that is nothing but a type of valley curve, we can say. But unfortunately, what happens in our country is that this is not treated as a curve. Okay. Though the condition requires or calls for a valley curve over here, it's not generally treated as a curve. What they do is, generally you have a plain road, and then whenever the flyover starts, you have an RE wall construction over here, and then at the interface they just compact some more material and they give us a good finish so that it looks like it's homogeneous. But you all must have observed it or experienced it at some point of time, that whenever you travel on a flyover, whether you are ascending it or you are descending that flyover, at this interface of road and flyover, so at the start and end of the flyover, you'll always feel some discomfort if you are traveling in a vehicle, okay? Or even if you are traveling on a two-wheeler, you will feel a hit or a jerk to your back whenever you travel on such portion. So that is because it has had to be designed as a valley curve. Okay? Though the value of that valley curve or length of that valley curve is very small, because the gradient is, or n value, it comes out to be only the one which is coming from the gradient, because the other side it's zero. So in that case, the length of valley curve, it comes out to be very small, but then too, that length has to be provided so that there is not a discomfort to your passengers. Okay? So that discomfort thing we'll see in a couple of slides after this. So this second example is typically in case of a flyover. Okay. Third one already you have seen the title slide, that is the down gradient followed by an up gradient, and that's the typical case, or this case we are going to consider for evaluation of all our formulas for a valley curve. Okay. Because if you see the worst case scenario amongst all these, so you'll come to know how come it's the worst case scenario once we discuss what are the parameters on which, or what are the considerations for the design of your valley curve. Okay, so just remember that this case number 3, we are going to adopt for the derivation of all the formulas. Okay, and case number 4, or type number 4, we have an up gradient, a mild up gradient of plus n1 followed by a steep up gradient of again plus n1, it should be. So in that case, again you have a valley curve kind of thing. Okay, but now this fourth case or fourth type, the curve comes out to be very mild. Now here it's just exaggerated that you could see the difference between two. In actual practice, it looks something like this, that there is a very, if I just differentiate using some color, okay, it looks something like this, that there is a very minimum deviation. This is an up gradient from here till here, and then you have a change in gradient. So if I would have just drawn it with a red color, you would have not even differentiated it. But in that case, you have a very small amount of, or small length of valley curve that needs to be provided. Okay? Just for making you realize the change in gradients, I have drawn this exaggerated figure of your gradients n1 and n2. Okay. So this fourth one is typically a very mild type of valley curve that is seen. So these are the types of valley curves or sag curve, and the concept of deviation angle, that is n, it remains the same as your summit curves, that it's the algebraic difference between the intersecting gradients. So whatever it is, suppose in type number 1, minus n1 and minus n2, so I'll just algebraically subtract it. So I'll get such kind of equation. So from that I have got this capital N is equal to n2 minus n1 or minus n1 plus n2. So similarly it goes for all the other types as well. Now coming to the valley curve, if we now discuss a bit that what actually could be the parameters on which this design of valley curve will depend, or what considerations you should give. Like in summit curve, while discussing, we thought over it that, okay, if I'm traveling on a summit curve, so the main hindrance to a driver is that he or she can't really assess whether there is a vehicle coming from the opposite direction, because in that we had taken the, again, the third type of summit curve in which up gradient is followed immediately by a down gradient. So that was the worst case scenario in vehicle or any obstruction on the other side of the apex. Okay. So then we thought that, okay, if this is the scenario, then obviously I have to look into the side distance considerations. Okay. So like in that way, we went for the formulas in which we compared the length of our summit curve to stopping side distance and overtaking side distance. Now, if I come to valley curve, So in valley curve, if I just say that you have a fast moving vehicle or a four-wheeler and it's negotiating a valley curve. Okay, so this is a typical valley curve. Now again, this is the third type that I said that we'll be considering this. So we'll come to know now why we have considered only this as the case or type for a design purpose. So a valley curve, and then you have a fast moving vehicle on it. Now if I say, or if I talk about the forces which are acting on this car or a vehicle, so obviously you have a self weight of that vehicle which is acting downward, and again now it's a curve. Okay? So wherever you know now that wherever curve comes into picture, there is automatically introduction of centrifugal force. Okay, but now this centrifugal force, it's different. It's not throwing your vehicle away from the curve, but it is also acting towards the, or it is also acting in the downward direction. So in horizontal curve, we had seen that if this is the vehicle and this is the curve, so okay, so in this case, your centrifugal force, it will be acting outward, whereas we have to keep the vehicle on the inner track. Okay? So in that case, it was the centrifugal force which was acting in opposite directions of all the forces that we had. But now we have changed the scenario. It was this we had considered in a horizontal curve. Now that curve has become vertical. Okay? So we have just inverted it and changed the plane. So now this is the curve that we have. Okay? And you are looking at the side view, if suppose. So it will, the centrifugal force, it will again act in this direction, but now the direction has become a downward direction. Both the forces which are predominant one, those are acting in downward direction. So what happens if we think about the mechanics of the car, or the components of the car, right? So you all cars. Now those shock absorbers are having the sole purpose that whatever are the up and down movements of your vehicle, so you need to dampen them. Otherwise, you'll get a feel of sitting in a horse, sitting on a horse. So to remove that effect, you use shock absorber so that whatever is the up and down movement, even a slight up and down movement, that gets dampened, and then you feel that okay, you are traveling on a smooth road. Now in this case, if you have a centrifugal force as well as a self weight, so both the forces combinedly are acting in the same direction, so that will give some more additional pressure on your shock absorbers and ultimately on your tires. Okay. So it may happen that if your vehicle is a fast moving vehicle, so you feel a kind of discomfort when you reach the lowest point of your valley curve. Okay. And because we are not stopping our vehicle on valley curve or on this lowest point itself, we are going to travel down the curve, go to the lowest point, and then we are again going to go up. So in that case, when your vehicle reaches at this point, so you will feel a discomfort because both the forces, centrifugal force and self weight, they are acting downwards, and that creates an additional pressure on your tires. Okay? And when there is a change, sudden change in this gradient, you will, that pressure will be converted into form of a jerk or a discomfort to the passengers. Okay? So this is what happens when a fast moving vehicle negotiates a valley curve. So what I'm trying to imply is this, that centrifugal force, it will act or it will put some additional pressure on your suspension system and ultimately the tires, which will cause the discomfort. So if I want to avoid this discomfort, okay, and if I have to give a smooth riding quality, so I have to design this curve, okay, whatever is this curve part, I have to design in such a way that there is minimum or no discomfort to the passengers. Now, for that you have to properly design your valley curve and also lay it properly. We'll come back to this discomfort point again after a few slides. Then the next consideration, now this slide talked about one consideration, that there is a chance that there will be discomfort to the passengers if your valley curve is not designed properly. Okay? So there can be a discomfort. So we got our first hint or a clue that what we should consider while designing our valley curve. So we should consider that there should not be any discomfort. Now in the next scenario, we'll talk about that suppose it's a daytime and you are traveling on a valley curve. The same scenario, same car and everything is same, but it's a daytime. So if I ask you what will be the considerations from side distance point of view, okay, what will be your take on it? So you'll obviously think that okay, you are traveling down a valley curve. Okay? If I just go back a few slides and show you this figure, so this is exactly the scenario that I am talking about. Okay. Now it's a daytime. It's daytime and you have a valley curve. The same, if you just focus on this much part of the figure, okay, the down part, don't consider the up one. So if you focus on only this part, this is the exact same scenario what I'm talking about in the picture over there. That is a daytime and you are traveling on this valley curve. So if I just neglect the upper side, okay, I have only vision till here. So now if I ask you that what do you think about the side distance, so you'll say that okay, it's clearly visible even if a vehicle, if you are traveling in this direction and if a vehicle is coming from the opposite direction as well, but you can see that okay, a vehicle is traveling on the opposite direction. Now this is because if you see the gradients, you are traveling on a down gradient and the other vehicle is also traveling on a down gradient, but for you it's an opposite gradient or up gradient. So obviously there is no issue about the side distance in this case. Okay. So in this case, so there is no issue about the side distance because you are clearly having a visible range that okay, there is a vehicle or there is an obstruction in front of me, and then you will be able to apply the brakes within the or considering all the reaction time and braking distance, and then you will not collide with that object or the vehicle. But now if I change the scenario, if I consider night time, so night time, obviously if I tell you to go on the same road which I had shown a few slides back, okay, and if I tell you to travel on it, so obviously now you will be considering that okay, what will be the side distance, because generally on highways, we are talking this about highways generally don't have continuous lighting. Okay. The street lights that you see, those are mainly provided only in the urban areas or the city roads. And in case of highways, it is only provided if your highway is going through a populated area. But otherwise, if you see a rural highway where on both the sides of the highway there is no habitation of any kind, so in that case there is no need of lighting because that will unnecessarily create a burden on the economy. And obviously at night times every vehicle has its own headlight, so street lighting is not preferred over there. So in that case, if it's a night time and if you are traversing on such kind of a valley curve, okay, so obviously if there is an object in front of you, okay, if there is an object suppose here, so until and unless your headlights they reach this object, you will not be able to see that object. Okay? And suppose if you are traveling at a very high speed, so even if your headlights they reach or they fall on that object and it's visible to you, but now you are not in a position to control or apply the brakes, or even if you apply the brakes, you are definitely going to collide with that object because your speed is high. So in this case, at night time, clearly everything depends on this if and but condition, that if you see the object then you will collide, or if you see the object but you are at a low speed, you will not collide. So this if and but condition, it totally depends on whether my beam of light or beam of my headlight it will reach that object or not. So if I guess I hope all of you have traveled or driven a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler which is having a headlight at night time, and you have switch the headlight phase, that is upper and dipper we say. So dipper is nothing but the beam of light, it is going in a downward direction, and then you have a upper in which you apply this upper or switch on to upper headlights when you have to see some longer distances, mainly on a highway stretch. Okay. So now you see whatever object we had placed here. So if I place a dipper, I can't see that object. But if I switch on to upper headlights, then I will be able to see. So this all if and but and this scenario that whether you collide or not, it depends on your headlight. Okay. So obviously your sight distance, it is governed by what is your headlight distance. Yeah. So generally when you if you compare different kinds of vehicles, so each vehicle has its own make of headlight, and the illumination factor and the throw of that headlight, the angle of that headlight, that is variable for each and every vehicle. Okay. So depending on that what is the type of vehicle and what is these all parameters, that is the make and all kinds of thing, then we will see that whether we are able to see the object in front of us or not. Okay. So governing factor is headlight. And also in sight distance also we have seen two types, that is stopping sight distance and overtaking sight distance. So obviously stopping sight distance is going to be the main concern for us. Now when I say that stopping sight distance is going to be a main concern, so you will think that what about then overtaking sight distance? Now again, go to that scenario. You are traveling at night and you are traveling on this valley curve. Now as your vehicle has headlights, we assume that the oncoming vehicle which is coming from another direction, that is also having a headlight. So even if you are trying to overtake a slow moving vehicle in front of you, okay, and if there is an oncoming vehicle, so definitely from the headlight, from that opposite or the oncoming vehicle's headlights itself, you will come to know that okay, there is a vehicle approaching, so it will not overtake. Okay. So overtaking sight distance is not a concern in case of a valley curve and if you are traveling at the night time, only from the assumption that all the vehicles traveling at night time on this highway or on this valley curve, they are having headlights on and then it's visible. Okay, so that's why overtaking is not overtaking side distance is not an issue, but your stopping side distance is the main issue. That if your headlights fall on that object, then only it's visible. Otherwise, you are bound to collide. Okay. Now here we got a second parameter on which your design it will depend, that is side distance, and that to the stopping side distance. Okay, so the first parameter we got over here was discomfort, and the second parameter we got over here is the side distance. So these are the two parameters on which now we think that we are able to design or will be able to design our valley curve, because we know that okay, these are the two things that I have to keep in mind. Now if you go into more details that what are the factors, so already we have seen the first one is impact free movement of vehicles at design speed, that is comfort to passengers. So we had seen this, that there is a chance that your passengers might feel a discomfort, but we don't want that discomfort to be there. So obviously we will design in such a way that your passengers travel with a comfort and ease. Second factor we saw, that providing adequate sight distance under headlights of vehicle during night driving. So that was our worst case scenario. Now again, if you go back to all the four types of your valley curves, and now if you apply this concept over there of whether you will get a discomfort or not, or whether your headlights will be able to illuminate that much distance or not, then you will come to know that okay, this third type that we saw, that a down gradient followed by an up gradient, that will be a crucial one, because for all the other combinations, either you have a mild gradient after it or you have a down gradient altogether. So in that case, none of that will matter. And the third factor, important factor again, which is commonly neglected, in India or in many of the cases is this valley point, okay, or this lowest point that we have in the valley curve. So you have to locate that properly, and after locating it, you have to provide this cross drainage facility, because we know that during runoff, what is going to happen is the water is going to just flow over the surface and it will accumulate at the lowest point, and that lowest point is nothing but a lowest point of our valley curve. And if it gets stagnant with water, so the driver coming from any direction, he or she will not be able to make out that what is actually there. And if unfortunately if there is a pothole over there, so there are chances that there is a accident over there, which can also be a fatal one. So generally, next time whenever you go to or drive on a highway, and if you encounter such kind of valley curve, just take your car aside onto the shoulder, park it properly, and you just have a look around it. You will find a culvert type of thing. Students, is my voice audible? Still audible? Yeah, there was a power failure. So for a short moment, the internet was disconnected. I was saying that whenever next time you travel on such kind of valley curve, just take your vehicle on a side, park it properly, and then just get down and see what's actually there on the sides of this kind of a lowest point of valley curve. So you will find a slab culvert or it's a box culvert. It's nothing but a short and that is because in case of a runoff, whatever is the topography and whatever is the runoff from the road itself, so it will be easy for that runoff to just cross over the topography and your lower point will not get flooded. So these are the factors which are considered for design of your valley curve. Now, as far as the formulas go, we have formulas for the first two factors, that we will be finding out the length of your valley curve to provide a comfort to passengers, and we will be providing the length of valley curve so that you get a adequate side distance. As far as this third point is concerned, the drainage facility, you just remember for now that you have to do something about the drainage, and in the actual drainage part, highway drainage part, we will see that what can be done for this drainage facility over here. Okay, so we'll stop here, and in the next lecture we'll see the formulas which are related to this 2 points of this comfort and side distance, and which are going to affect the design of your valley curve. So that's all for today.